Welcome back to Face the Nation. We continue our conversation with President Obama, picking up where we left off, talking about Hillary Clinton. You built a team at the beginning, and you were really clear about transparency.
Yeah.
You were going to change the White House and
Yeah.
be transparent to send a message to the country who felt let down by people.
Right.
She set up an email server that was neither in the spirit or the letter of that transparency. That's no small thing based on what you told everybody about transparency at the beginning.
Right. And I think that she would acknowledge she made a mistake. But what I also think is true is that if you've been in the public eye for decades at the highest levels of scrutiny, folks are going to find some mistakes you make. I've made mistakes. I don't know any president or public official at her level who aren't going to look back and say, I should have done something like that differently. But what I would also say is that the consistency with which she has devoted her life to trying to make sure that kids get health care and a good education, and that families are getting a fair break if they're working hard, and that America upholds its best traditions of foreign policy. On the big stuff, she's gotten it right.
But if you make mistakes, you got to admit them quick and come clean.
Well,
you said that about the Reverend Wright. You said afterwards, you said, you know what, we learned. You got to get this done, and you got to.
Yeah. Ultimately, government is a human enterprise. None of us are perfect, and this job, by definition, leader of the free world, president of the United States of America, the most powerful country and wealthiest country and most influential country in the history of the world, it's a big job. And it has gotten more and more complicated, and the speed and the pace at which you're moving is different. And if you think about, now that we know our history about the errors of even our greatest presidents, of FDR or JFK or Ronald Reagan or Harry Truman, then what you realize is that ultimately each of us who occupy this office, including me, are going to, in some ways, in some areas, fall short of the ideal. And I promise you, if you occupy this job long enough, you're acutely aware of it. You're painfully aware. There isn't a day where I don't say to myself, I wish I could have done this just a little better. I wish I could explain to the American people this issue just a little bit more effectively. I wish that I had some perfect scheme that could bring about an end to the crisis in Syria quicker, so that because I'm seeing the consequences of events that are unfolding all around the world. But what keeps you going is the fact that you're doing your best, that you have put together a team of people that could not be working harder or be smarter or more effective. And what you also know is that at the end of the day, our democracy works because it's not reliant just on one person, but it's a process of self-government where we're all involved in making things a little bit better.
FDR and Lincoln were both talented at letting both sides of an issue think that they agreed with both of them. Is honesty overrated as a presidential quality?
It's interesting. I actually think that honesty is not overrated. I think it is absolutely necessary. Because the trust you have with the American people is currency that can get depleted and is hard to build back up. What I also believe, though, is that the issues we deal with are so complicated, and trying to move all the pieces together to move this huge ocean liner that is the U.S. government means that sometimes holding your tongue, sometimes letting things play themselves out, knowing not just when to act, but also when to hold back and see how things are playing out so that you can pick and choose the time to do what needs to be done because the moment may not be ripe yet. You know, those things I think are a matter of feel. You know, Lincoln and FDR were masters at it. You know, I'm not in their league, but hopefully after 7.5 years I've gotten a little better at it.
What's the one piece of advice that your predecessor gave you that worked, that was really useful?
Well, first of all, George W. Bush, despite, you know, obviously very different political philosophies, is a really good man and has been very gracious to me and to Laura, has been gracious to Michelle. The whole family's been terrific. Probably two useful pieces of advice. The first piece of advice was trust yourself and know that ultimately, regardless of the day-to-day news cycles and the noise, that the American people need their president to succeed, regardless of political party, which I thought was very generous of him. The second piece of advice is always use Purell hand sanitizer, because if you don't, you're going to get a lot of colds because you shake a lot of hands.
All right, news you can use.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Thanks, I enjoyed it.
We also visited the Oval Office while we were at the White House Friday. That's coming up.